Most people believe money problems come from low income. They think if they just earn more, everything would fall into place. But the truth is much simpler and much harder to accept. The hardest part of building wealth isn't earning more money. It's getting started. Specifically, getting your first $100. That sounds backwards. How could $100 be harder than $10,000? On paper, it makes no sense. But money doesn't operate on logic alone. It operates on behavior and psychology. And at the beginning, psychology is the real enemy. When you're at zero, saving feels pointless. Every dollar you try to set aside feels like something you're losing, not something you're building. There's no proof that your effort matters yet, no momentum, no visible progress. So your brain constantly looks for reasons to quit. Spending, on the other hand, feels rewarding immediately. A small purchase gives instant relief, comfort, or excitement. Saving gives nothing back right away. That imbalance makes the first $100 feel heavy and slow. It's not that people can't save, it's that saving doesn't feel worth it yet. The first $100 forces you to fight impulses you've trained for years, saying no to small pleasures, ignoring the voice that says, it's just $10, choosing future security over present comfort. That mental shift is uncomfortable because it goes against how modern life is designed. Social media pushes lifestyle upgrades. Ads push convenience. Everything around you encourages spending now and worrying later. So when you decide to save, it feels like swimming against the current with no guarantee you'll reach the shore. That's why the first $100 is so powerful. Not because of the amount, but because it changes your identity. You stop being someone who can't save and become someone who already has. Once that happens, money stops feeling impossible. The first $100 is hard because it demands a change in behavior before it gives any reward. And that's exactly why most people never get past it. The jump from 0 to 1 is the hardest part of any process, not just with money, but with fitness, skills, confidence, or business. Starting feels painful because there's nothing pushing you forward yet. Money works the same way. When you have nothing saved, you're not only behind financially, you're stuck in a mental loop. At zero, there is no system, no habit, no routine. Everything depends on motivation, and motivation is unreliable. It shows up randomly and disappears fast. One bad day, one impulse purchase, or one unexpected bill can erase all your effort. That's why so many people feel like they've been trying to save money for years without seeing real progress. This stage feels invisible. You don't feel richer. You don't feel smarter. You don't feel successful. There's no emotional reward to keep you going. You check your balance and think, that's it? That disappointment is dangerous because it slowly convinces you that saving money isn't worth the effort. When you're stuck at zero, every financial decision feels heavier than it should. Spending $20 feels meaningful. Losing $50 feels painful. Saving $10 feels pointless. Your brain keeps asking, why bother? And in the moment, that question feels completely reasonable. Humans are wired to respond to immediate rewards, not slow progress that barely feels real. Most people misunderstand this phase. They assume the struggle means they're bad with money or lack discipline. They tell themselves they'll start again when life is easier or income is higher. But that's not the real problem. The issue is that they never stay consistent long enough to escape zero. Zero is a trap because it teaches the wrong lesson. It makes effort feel disconnected from results. Once your brain accepts that belief, quitting feels logical, not lazy. Escaping zero doesn't require more money. It requires staying long enough for momentum to appear. The first $100 feels heavy because it forces you to fight something you usually never question: your own brain. Most people don't realize how much their daily financial behavior is driven by impulse, emotion, and habit. Until you try to save, those patterns stay invisible. Your brain is designed to protect comfort, not long-term growth. It prefers immediate rewards over delayed ones. That's why spending feels easy and saving feels uncomfortable. When you buy something, you get instant satisfaction. When you save, you get nothing back right away. No excitement, no validation, just patience. At the beginning, saving money feels like punishment. You're telling yourself no over and over again with no clear payoff. Every small sacrifice feels bigger than it actually is. Skipping a $5 purchase feels annoying. Skipping a $20 purchase feels painful. Your brain exaggerates the discomfort because it's losing something familiar. This is where most people fail. They don't quit because they can't afford to save. They quit because the process feels emotionally unrewarding. The voice in their head starts saying things like, "It's such a small amount," or "I'll do it properly next month." Those thoughts sound logical, but they're just your brain protecting short-term comfort. The first $100 also challenges your identity. If you've never saved before, part of you believes you're not the type of person who saves money. Every time you try and feel discomfort, that belief gets tested. It's easier to quit and return to what feels normal than to sit with that tension. But here's the key truth. That discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're breaking a pattern. Your brain resists change before it accepts it. The first $100 feels heavy because it forces your behavior to change before your mindset catches up. Once you reach it, the resistance weakens. Not because saving becomes easy, but because your brain starts adapting. And that's the moment when progress finally feels possible. Something shifts the moment you pass your first $100. Not in your income, not in your lifestyle, but in your mindset. For the first time, saving money stops feeling theoretical and starts feeling real. You're no longer guessing if you can do it. You've already proven it. Momentum is powerful because it changes how effort feels. Before $100, every action feels heavy and forced. After $100, those same actions feel lighter. Not because they require less discipline, but because they finally make sense. Your brain now has evidence that your behavior leads to results. Once momentum exists, small wins start stacking. Saving $10 no longer feels pointless. It feels like progress. Checking your balance no longer feels disappointing. It feels motivating. That emotional shift is what keeps people going long after motivation disappears. Momentum also builds confidence. You stop seeing saving as something other people do. It becomes something you do. That identity shift is subtle but critical. When someone believes they are capable of saving, their decisions naturally start aligning with that belief. This is why the next $100 feels easier than the first, and why the next $1,000 feels easier than that. The system stays the same, but your resistance drops. You don't need to constantly convince yourself anymore. The habit begins to run automatically. Another reason momentum matters is that it reduces decision fatigue. Early on, every choice feels exhausting. Spend or save, now or later. Once momentum exists, those decisions become simpler. Saving becomes the default, not the exception. Most people never experience this phase because they quit too early. They mistake the early discomfort as a sign that something is wrong. In reality, that discomfort is the price of entry. Momentum only shows up after consistency, never before. This is why focusing on the first $100 matters so much. It's not about the number. It's about crossing the line where effort finally starts feeding itself. Once momentum kicks in, progress stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like a direction. Most people don't fail at saving money because they lack information. They fail because they repeat the same mistakes over and over without realizing it. These mistakes feel logical in the moment, which is why they're so dangerous. The first mistake is waiting for a higher income. People tell themselves they'll start saving once they earn more. But when income increases, spending usually increases with it. Without habits in place, more money just means bigger leaks. Waiting doesn't fix the problem, it delays it. The second mistake is relying on motivation. Motivation feels powerful, but it's unstable. It shows up after a good video, a paycheck, or a moment of inspiration, then disappears. Saving money can't depend on how you feel. Systems work, feelings don't. Another common mistake is underestimating small amounts. People ignore $5, $10, or $20 because it feels insignificant. But those small decisions shape behavior. Skipping small savings teaches your brain that consistency doesn't matter. Over time, that mindset becomes a habit. Many people also restart instead of continuing. They miss a week, overspend once, or break their rule, then quit completely. They treat saving like an all-or-nothing challenge instead of a long-term process. Progress doesn't require perfection. It requires persistence. Another trap is trying to save what's left over. After spending, eating out, subscriptions, and impulse purchases, there's usually nothing left. Saving needs to happen first, not last. Otherwise, it never happens at all. These mistakes keep people stuck in the zero zone, not because they're incapable, but because their strategy works against them. Saving isn't about being extreme. It's about being intentional. The uncomfortable truth is that most people don't need more knowledge. They need fewer excuses. Fixing these mistakes doesn't require a new app, a complex plan, or a big sacrifice. It requires doing boring things consistently. Once these mistakes are removed, progress becomes predictable. And when progress becomes predictable, saving stops feeling impossible and starts feeling inevitable. Saving money becomes easier when it stops being something you try to do and starts being something you are. This is the mindset shift most people never make. They focus on actions without changing identity, and that's why progress feels fragile. When someone believes they're bad with money, every attempt to save feels temporary. Deep down, they expect to fail. So the moment things get uncomfortable, quitting feels natural. Your beliefs shape your behavior long before logic gets involved. The real goal of the first $100 isn't the money, it's the identity change. The moment you see yourself as someone who saves, your decisions start changing automatically. You don't have to force discipline as much because your behavior aligns with who you believe you are. This is why small wins matter. Saving a small amount consistently tells your brain a new story. Each action reinforces the idea that you're capable. Over time, that belief becomes stronger than impulse. Most people chase big results because they think confidence comes first. In reality, confidence comes after action. You don't wake up believing you're disciplined. You become disciplined by doing disciplined things, especially when they feel uncomfortable. This mindset shift also changes how you view setbacks. Instead of seeing a mistake as failure, you see it as part of the process. Savers don't quit when they mess up. They adjust and continue. That difference alone separates people who build wealth from those who stay stuck. Another powerful change happens when saving stops feeling like deprivation. Instead of thinking, I can't spend this, you think, I'm choosing future stability. That reframe removes resentment from the process. The shift from saving money to becoming a saver is subtle but permanent. Once identity changes, consistency becomes easier. Habits stick because they're no longer fighting your self-image. Money doesn't change first, you do. And once that happens, progress stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. Reaching your first $100 doesn't require a complex plan, a new app, or extreme discipline. In fact, the simpler the strategy, the higher the chance you'll stick to it. The biggest mistake people make at this stage is overcomplicating something that should be boring and automatic. The first rule is to lower the target. Don't aim for $1,000. Don't think about long-term wealth yet. That creates pressure and makes quitting easier. Your only goal is the first $100. Nothing else matters. A small target keeps resistance low and momentum possible. The second rule is to save first, not last. If you wait to save whatever is left over, there will almost always be nothing left. The moment money comes in, a portion needs to be removed immediately, even if it's small, especially if it's small. This removes decision-making from the process. Another key action is separation. Your savings should be physically or digitally separate from your spending money. If you see it, you'll touch it. If you touch it, you'll spend it. Distance creates protection. The harder it is to access, the safer it becomes. Consistency matters more than amount. Saving $5 regularly beats saving $50 once. Small actions repeated daily or weekly train your brain to expect progress. That expectation is what builds discipline over time. It's also important to treat this money as unavailable, not emergency money, not just in case money. For this phase, it's training money. Its only job is to exist and prove consistency. Spending it resets the lesson. Finally, track progress visually. Watching the number grow, even slowly, reinforces the behavior. Progress needs to be seen to be felt. Without that feedback, motivation fades. The goal of these actions isn't financial optimization, it's behavioral change. If you can execute these simple steps until you hit $100, you've already done the hardest part. Everything after that becomes easier to repeat and scale. Most people spend their entire lives chasing big financial goals while failing at the small ones. They talk about $10,000, $100,000, or financial freedom, yet never master the first $100. That's not a money problem. That's a foundation problem. If you can't reach your first $100, the issue isn't income, luck, or opportunity. It's behavior. Big numbers don't fix broken habits. They only expose them. That's why people who suddenly earn more often end up in the same financial position, just with bigger expenses. The first $100 is the real test. It proves whether you can delay gratification, follow a system, and stay consistent without instant rewards. Those skills matter more than any salary increase or investment strategy. Without them, money slips through your hands no matter how much comes in. Winning at $100 means you've learned how to start. And starting is what most people never do. They wait for perfect conditions, higher income, or more motivation. But progress doesn't begin with confidence. Confidence is built through action. Once you win at $100, the next milestones stop feeling impossible. Not because the process changes, but because you change. You trust yourself more, you hesitate less, you stop negotiating with your impulses. This is why people who build wealth rarely talk about the early phase. It's boring, it's slow, it doesn't look impressive, but it's where everything is decided. Momentum is created quietly before results ever look impressive. You don't need to be extreme. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent long enough for momentum to appear. That's the secret most people overlook. If you can win the first $100, the rest is no longer about ability. It's about time. And time is on your side once the system is working. Win the first $100 and the game changes forever.